Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm going to be talking about a pretty wide-ranging strategy here. So stick with me. I think there's a lot of useful stuff here. If you notice that I have a crazy thing on my neck, let me just clear things up a little bit. This is not, unfortunately, a hickey. It is simply an artifact of my entirely normal and healthy habit of putting on pajamas and wrestling with other men in an attempt to strangle one another. So have no fear. Everything is well. Actually, what I want to talk about today does have connection to the principles of martial art, but it's by no means limited to those. The idea I want to have you and I'm going to be thinking about here, and I want you to think through it with me and try to apply it to your life, is the importance of initiation in making any kind of change or dealing with any sort of resistance in your life. Initiation as a strategy is something that is well documented and well supported by history, by famous military strategists like Sun Tzu, on the level of like military strategy, the strategy of war. The person who can determine the context of the engagement, the person that is who initiates the engagement, is the one who has the advantage in almost all situations. This is why the Spartans, 300, were able to hold off a massive Persian army because they were able to choose the location, the context of the engagement. This also, though, follows with whether it's business strategy, whether it's individual, man-to-man, person-to-person conflict or competition, anything like that. So you'll find similar things in Musashi. And, almost all of the great martial arts practitioners understand this. If you're doing mixed martial arts and you are able to control the range at which the fight happens or the phase of the battle, phase of the fight where most of the time is spent, you have a significant advantage. It's not just about controlling that context, though. It's also about the sort of going first. Because when you go first, you limit the other person's options to either, they can, if they act ineffectively, then your initiating move should be effective. But if they act effectively, they are limited to a certain number of behaviors that will be effective, which you can predict. It allows you to narrow down what to expect. Whereas if you are hoping to counter, if you're waiting for them to initiate, they have a much broader array of options, and thus you have to worry about a lot more things. So if I want to, pull, I'm sorry, I'm going to switch to martial arts talk here. So if you're not familiar with it, I apologize, but it's just an easy way to do this. If I want to get a snap down, if I want to break your balance and pull your head forward, the easiest way to do that may not be to grab onto your head and pull it forward because you're going to be able to counteract that. It might be to go for a leg, try to grab your leg so that you pull your leg back, thus creating a sort of imbalance in your stance that then can be exploited by grabbing the head and pulling it down towards the area where there's no longer a supporting leg. And so knowing that you're going to have to change your balance in order to defend against my attack on your leg, you're creating the conditions whereby I can succeed with the attack that I actually wanted to succeed with. Now, what does this have to do with, personal development and change and things like that? Everything. This is applicable to just about every area of self-discipline, self-growth, and just change. Let me give you at least two examples here. One would be if you're trying to develop some sort of new habit or practice. Now, I have had this experience so many times. I teach communication at a high level, graduate level, to people wanting to be effective in leadership roles, management roles, things like that. So I have a whole toolbox when it comes to effective, whether it's conflict resolution or management, whether it's negotiation, whether it's supporting the growth, development of others. Obviously, the coaching toolbox is there. And the most difficult people to use those tools with are the ones that are closest to me. Tell me if that doesn't sound familiar. The most difficult person to be level-headed and an effective communicator with is my wife, who I love dearly. After being together for almost like 20 years at this point, it's almost like she's so close to me that she feels like just an extension of me, and thus it's easy to sort of slip into the less productive, less ideal, less skilled behavioral routes. And this is absolutely the case when I am reacting to her. So if I were to try to do something skillful like empathizing when she's upset about something, especially if it's something that has to do with some behavior I've exhibited, or summarizing her point before I make my own point. The things that you hear communication teachers, experts speak about all the time. That is nearly impossible when I am reacting to her. When she brings me the issue at hand, or she brings me a state of emotional imbalance, it's almost impossible to not be imbalanced myself. And so it's very difficult to practice using those tools with her, because by the time I remember to use them, I've already missed my chance and screwed up in every way imaginable. Unless I am the one who initiates the conversation, and I do so with the expectation of what kind of friction or resistance might occur, and with the intention to use a specific tool, and typically limiting it down to one. I'm going to focus on using this one is really the way to go here, because the more things that you're trying to keep in your working memory, the harder it is to be skilled with them, to be functional with them. So really limited to one thing. The same goes for my kids. You know, if I go pick up my kids, that is a great time before they get in the car. That's a great time for me to think to myself, okay, how do I want to greet them when they get in the car? I want to ask them about how their day went, but I want to do so using, like a skill. And that skill might be mirroring. That skill might be, empathizing. It might be asking open-ended follow-up questions, something like that. So pick one and say like, all right, well, I have a 5-minute, 10-minute car ride home. During the 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to see if I can activate that skill, employ that skill at least 3 to 5 times. And that's a way to build up the reps. And if you don't have the reps under those ideal circumstances, I mean, you're going to struggle. It's going to be nearly impossible to do it under less than ideal, under circumstances where you feel under attack, or like your identity or your ego or something like that is at risk. You got to build up the muscle first. There's one situation, one way to do it. Go into, if you know you're going to be acting, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a coworker you have conflict or trouble dealing with. Before it starts, that's your opportunity to say, I'm going to initiate contact with this person, and I'm going to do it with the intention of employing this skill in a way that improves our relationship, for example. Okay, so that's one. Here's the second one. And this one I think is even more profound, because it allows you to change your behaviors from the inside out. I've talked in other videos about internal family systems model of the human psyche. And so if you're not familiar with that, please check out the other videos. I don't want to go into depth about it here. Suffice to say that we all have parts in our psyche. We have a sort of multiplicate. We have a multiplicate psyche. And this is totally normal. It's totally healthy. It's not It's not pathological for most of us. And you know that part of you that shows up in the morning when the alarm goes off and says like, the bed is so warm and you had a late night last night and you feel like you're getting sick, so maybe you should just get some more sleep. And it comes up with all these great reasons for you to not get out of bed and do the hard thing that is the thing that you know you must do if you want to achieve any, the thing that you have in mind or whatever it is. Those are your parts. And your parts can be very convincing and your parts can lead you. And we don't ever want to be parts led. We want to be led by our core, by ourself, by the ideal version of who we are. So what do we do in those situations? Well, you can do the same thing you do with other people, the initiation approach that I described with regard to my kids and my wife. You can do that with your parts as well. And one of my clients sort of came up with this idea. Maybe he didn't know he was coming up with it, but he came up with this part. He named it Brian. I guess he has something against Brian's because he said it was a stupid name. I have nothing against you if your name is Brian. In fact, I know a lot of very nice, wonderful Brians. So just want to get that, clear the air. I'm pro Brian. But apparently he has something against Brian's. And so he named this part of himself that is kind of like his bitch ass self. I don't know how else to describe it. It's the part of him that shows up when he wants to do something hard that is like, that's so hard. I don't want to do that. I don't have the energy, or like, the bed is so much warmer. Okay. He named that Brian, and he knew, he said, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. twice this week so that I can go for a hill run and do some sprints or something like that. And he said, I know Brian is going to show up. But here's the difference between when Brian normally shows up and when it showed up this time, is that he anticipated Brian showing up. He knew that Brian was going to show up, and it allowed him to prepare countermeasures. Just sort of say like, oh, hey, I knew you were going to show up. I knew you were coming. So, like, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you, Brian. You ain't got nothing. And while it did take him close to 30 minutes to actually get out of bed because of the argument he got in with Brian about whether it was a good idea, whether it was the right thing to do, whether he really needed to do it or not, he ended up doing it. And every time he does that, it's going to get easier and easier until Brian has learned his place and knows that his voice is not the one that is the arbiter of behavior at that time and place, in that context. He's weakening Brian and strengthening that self that he really wants to be in charge. So by recognizing that Brian was going to show up, he was able to have his defenses ready. He was able to have, it just made it easier for him. Whereas normally he would be sort of taken by surprise. I mean, he knows Brian's there, but he didn't consciously acknowledge it previously. He didn't ready his defenses. A lot of this comes back to when you're getting into these arguments with yourself. What's your system for actually deciding what you do? A lot of us, our system is not well defined. It's basically, I have an argument with myself, and whoever has the best arguments ends up winning the day. That's a terrible way to go about these things, because your mind knows your weaknesses better than anybody, and it will exploit all of them to get you to not change, because it's most concerned not with helping you become a fantastic version of yourself, but with helping you survive. And according to its model of the world, its rationale, change is always dangerous. Staying the same, even if the same is damaging you, is more comfortable, and comfort equals safety to your mind, to the older parts of your brain, and to a lot of your parts. So your system cannot be, I'm going to have a discussion with myself, and based upon who the best debater is, I'll go with their plan of action. The system needs to be something more direct and more aggressive and more assertive than that. When they show up, you say, oh, it's you. Hey, not interested. Just shut them down right there. Do the thing you're going to do. And in so many cases, the antidote to fear is action. Because a lot of it comes back to fear of change, fear of discomfort. I mean, that's a huge one. But the antidote to fear is action. For example, getting your leg out of from underneath your covers and on the floor. That action, if you can take it, can change everything. It can create the momentum that you need for the next action. And from there, it's a snowball rolling downhill. I hope that helps. Initiate. That's how you create positive change in your life. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting the channel, just for watching it. I really appreciate it. And anything else you could do, I would appreciate that as well. Have a fantastic day, and just go be your best self. Go be the ideal elite version of yourself for just a few minutes at a time. Feel how rewarding it is. All right, signing off. Thank you very much.